Create this animation over here, which I'll play quickly now. Control test movie and animate. It's a fish that's sort of swimming and blowing bubbles. And as we do this animation, we'll go over a couple of concepts. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say File New and create a new animation just to start from scratch. The size, I will make it HD. That's fine. And then what I'm going to do is the frame rate. I'm going to stick to 12 frames a second. You don't want to do anything small. Anything less than 12 starts to look jerky. You can make it 30, 60. It's up to you, but 12 is a good one to start with. So then I say create. That's going to create a new document like this. The next, I'm going to make it 50%, so I see the whole screen. Next, I'm going to modify it and create a background color. So I'm going to modify document. I'm going to change the stage color from white to a light blue, probably something like that. That's fine. And say OK. Next thing I'm going to do is that water effect. And the way that works, I'm going to go to my paintbrush over here. Then under properties, I can change the size of the paintbrush to what I want it to be. Let's just look something like that. It's probably fine. I don't know why my whole canvas turned, but anyway, cool, that's fine. So then I'm going to, on the first frame, I'm going to draw just literally random squiggles. And then I want this frame to take this animation to take roughly 5 seconds. So we're running at 12 frames a second. So at about 60 frames, that's going to be, so 60 frames at 12 frames a second, that's going to be, the whole animation will be 5 seconds long. So I'm going to say insert frame. And now on this keyframe, I can now change and draw whatever I want. Actually, that's going to draw the whole thing, isn't it? I have to create a keyframe, don't I? Actually, no. How did that? So I drew on this one. So I said insert frame, and then I drew more stuff on this keyframe. So again, what I have is on the first keyframe, on the first keyframe, I had this that I drew initially, and then on the last frame, I drew a bunch of stuff. And between these two frames, I can right-click, and I can say create shape tween. And what should happen is exactly that. What it does, it's an algorithm that it does, which basically converts this drawing into this drawing, and what I get as an effect is this kind of funky looking sort of wave thing going on. So that would be the background of the two things. So again, shape tweens are pretty simple. I'll just show you just an example. So on this next layer, what I'm going to do on the beginning is create a quick square, and then I'm going to go to, I'm going to go on the end here, and on this one I'm going to say insert I guess a keyframe, that's fine, and then I'm going to actually go and manipulate this square. So I'm going to just pull I need this. I'm going to pull the arrow, change the shape, for example, of this square to something I want. I don't know if you guys can see it clearly. And then what happens is this is my regular square, and then of this one I change the shape, and all I got to do is create shape tween in between the two. And what should happen is that square will automatically, I don't know if you guys can see it, but that square is slowly, as I go, turning into that shape. But anyway, I'm going to erase this top layer for now. That was just to show you the way shape tweens works. Okay, so I have the water effect. The next thing is the fish. So what I'm going to do is create a new layer on top of that. And I'm going to create, I'm going to use the paintbrush tool. I'm going to make it slightly smaller. Maybe change the color to, let's see, a golden color. So it's and I'm gonna, I'm gonna draw a fish. It's a pretty beautiful fish over here. I'm actually gonna fill him in as well. So that's not what I wanted to do. I want to be on that layer, and I want to fill my fish in like that. Okay. And then why don't I just give this fish an eye too? That's fine. It's a beautiful fish over here. Okay. So that was now on that layer. So I can see that I can hide this layer over here, and I can see that that fish is on one layer and the wood is on the other layer. What I probably should have done actually before I drew the fish, I could have locked the layer below. That way I'm making sure that it's going to be on its own layer, because you want to have that thing on its own layer. Okay, what I'm going to do next is I want this fish to swim from left to right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this fish. I'm actually going to go back to my main selection tool. Click on the fish. Everything is selected over here. And I'm going to say modify, and I'm going to say convert to symbol. What that does, it converts this fish into a symbol. And what a symbol is, I'll show you over here. I'm going to call this thing fish. Is a symbol is a movie clip within a movie clip. So that sounds complicated, but what that means is that, so for example, I can see that when I click on this fish once, I can see this, I don't know if you guys can see it on the screen here, but there's a sort of a light square around the fish. can drag it here. Maybe you'll see it better against the dark background. But anyway, you can see this sort of light square around it. And also, what that means is that I can now double click on this fish, and now I have another movie clip within here. So over here I have scene 1, which is the main timeline. And if I double click on the fish, I'm within the fish's timeline, as it were. So that lets me do two things. One thing I can do is I'm going to go back to my main timeline. I'm going to go double click on my fish timeline, make sure I'm within the fish timeline over here. I'm going to now create a mini animation of the fish swimming. And this is not going to be a work of art, but let's just see how I'm going to do this. So over here with the fish, I'm going to go to the paintbrush tool, and I'm going to draw, it's 1 second, where is, 1 second, tools, and I'm going to make sure it's not, I want to get it the same color as this orange. Okay, and I'm going to give this fish some flippers, or whatever you want to call these, not flippers, fins. Okay, so this is my fish, and then on this layer, on the next, or not layer, on a keyframe next to it, doesn't really matter where you put it. I'm going to put it like maybe 2 keyframes on. I'm going to say insert keyframe. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to erase these fins. I might as well make this thing eraser a bit bigger. I'm going to erase these fins like this. I'm going to erase the tail as well. And probably better ways I could have done this. But anyway, and then I'm going to create a slightly different shape of fin, something like this. And what's going to happen now, because everything loops by default in Flash, I'm going to have this animation of a fish doing this back and forth. So if I go back to my main scene and I play this thing, I see nothing's actually happening. But if I say Control Test Movie and test and animate, what I can see is happening is my fish is actually in the middle and it's flapping up and down, because that flapping that we see over here, or swimming, whatever you want to call it, is happening within the movie clip of the fish. Because I made it a symbol, I'm able to do that. Okay, so then we have these 2 layers. The next thing I want to do is I want to go into this movie clip. And I'm actually going to, because now it's a movie clip, it's a symbol, I can also do something called a motion tween. And the way a motion tween works is I'm going to take this fish and I'm going to drag him off the screen. So he's off the screen over here. Then I'm going to go to the very end of this animation, and on this, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, on this layer, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say create motion tween. You can see it changes color, so it lets me know that that's a tween layer. But what I want to do is go on the last frame of this tween layer and now move my fish across the screen. And by doing that, I have the fish, you can see, kind of leaves a trail behind it. And if I play this thing, what happens is the fish is going to move from left to right across the screen, and I can even use this path to change the path of the fish. So it looks like this. And if I test my movie clip, Control Test Movie, what I'll find is that it'll move from left to right, and it should also be swimming at the same time, because we have that animation happening within the fish. So there we have this animation. And then the last thing we did was bubbles coming from the fish. There's a couple ways to do it, but the easiest way, you probably guessed it, is to go into the fish itself. So double click on that fish symbol, and now you're within this timeline. And within this timeline, you can now play around with, so for example, you could make its own timeline. So you could, for example, one thing we could do, let's just do this quickly, we could make a bubble. Let's make it white. I'll make a bubble here. I'll now make this bubble its own symbol. So I'm going to say modify, convert to symbol, make it a movie clip. I'm going to call it bubble. And now I can click within this one, and now it has its own timeline here. So now what I can do is say insert keyframe here, maybe give it another, let me make another bubble here, and maybe insert keyframe here, maybe give a bigger bubble here. So now the animation that's going to play is this. Maybe on the last one, I'm going to create another keyframe and get rid of all the bubbles. Let's try that. So now what should happen is going to be this animation. And then within the fish, I have this animation. And then on my main scene, I have the movie clip going from left to right. So let's just try that out again. Control Test Movie. And what should happen, we should have a fish going from left to right with the bubbles going. It's not a beautiful animation, but hopefully it's helped you understand some of the concepts in terms of frame-by-frame animation, and the idea of movie clips, and then movies playing within movies. Okay.